What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Laugh to Learn podcast, your weekly source for a comedic spin on all the goings-on in the world. My name is, as it is each and every week, hasn't changed yet, Jacob Paveo, and I come to you from the Great White North every Tuesday evening. I seriously need to change this. I come to you from the Great White North every Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, fresh for download to listen to at work Wednesday for everyone, the entire world around. That way, when you're at work on Wednesday, you can download the podcast. If you're commuting, you can listen to it on the way home. You can listen to it on Spotify. You don't even need to download it. You can stream it over there. Spotify, honestly, seems like the place to be for podcasting right now. Let me tell you, Joe Rogan's podcast just moved over there full time. Anyways, if it's your first time here, welcome, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button on whatever your favorite podcasting app happens to be. You can find me there. I hope you will enjoy your time here enough to return once more. We're also available on YouTube. No video content, but you can listen to it on YouTube. Also, please share the podcast over on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Throw it in your stories or your feeds or whatever they happen to call it on that platform. You can do that by just taking a screenshot of the podcast, playing on your phone right now. It's the easiest way to get the word out and bring in all sorts of fun new friends to listen to the podcast. Help spread the word and post that screenshot. Don't forget, podcast merch can be picked up by anyone in the U.S. or Canada at laughtolearnpodcast.com/store. As of now, if you place an order, it will not be here by Christmas. I want to put that out there so that you don't place an order hoping it'll be here by Christmas. That being said, we may have some more stuff coming in the new year. So listen and look forward to that. Also, we will not be posting an episode the week of Christmas this year. I talked about this last week, and I'm going to talk about it every week until then. So no Christmas episode. Actually, you know what? This seems like a fantastic time to go over my Christmas plans. On Thursday, the 17th of December, I will be going away to get a COVID test. Anyone can actually pay to have them done. You don't need to have symptoms or anything. You can go and pay and have a rapid test, even here in Canada. Just go to a private health clinic. So I'm going to be going and getting a COVID test done on the 17th because I have yet to actually meet my niece, who was born in September. So I'm going to get the test done on the 17th, at which point I'm going to be moving into my apartment and where the new studio's at and stuff. It's not going to be completely finished, but by living there, kind of makes things easier to get them done. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be December 17th. And then at that point, I'm not going to be recording an episode the following week. So Wednesday the 23rd, there will not be an episode of the podcast. I'm not sure if the week before or the week of the 16th, if I'm going to put one up. But definitely the 23rd and the 30th, those 2 weeks, I'm going to take off. A little bit of a Christmas break from the podcast. I will, of course, return that first week of January. But I'm going to be at the new place. And so basically, I want every single episode of the podcast in 2021 to be recorded from the new studio. It's not going to be completely finished. For sure, it's not going to be finished by the first week of January, but I want every episode to be done there, and I'm going to make it happen. So that is the plan as of right now. The last 2 weeks of December, Wednesday the 23rd and Wednesday the 30th, there will not be a new episode of the podcast. Just getting that out there now so you guys know what to expect. This week, however, because it's the beginning of December, it's still the first week, all right? We got to slow things down. It's not Christmas yet. We have a better idea of how the vaccines will be distributed. So after a few weeks ago talking about how efficient and effective the vaccines will be, please go back and listen to that episode if you haven't yet. I'm very proud of that episode. I now ask the question, should the military and military personnel and former military personnel be the ones leading this campaign to distribute the the podcast, to distribute the vaccine. Wow. My brain not in it. As we are actually seeing in both the US and Canada, we're hiring former military members and current military personnel to come and help with this distribution. Is that the right thing to do? That's the question we're going to talk about today. After that, Trump actually said out loud in an interview, in it was actually a press conference, that he will leave the White House if he loses the election. So that is a huge thing that we got to talk about, and we'll get into why that's a huge thing. But first, my hometown is approaching a move into the, quote, red zone for COVID-19. So what does it mean? Should I be breaking up my apocalypse kit now? Well, you're about to find out, because this is the Laugh to Learn podcast. Hey, check it out. It's the Laugh to Learn podcast. So, it appears that the health unit in charge of my local area is getting closer and closer to a threshold where they will be forced to move into the red zone. Now, here in Ontario, we have, how many? 2, 4, 5 different levels of COVID prevention and protection. So they are done by colors, and there's a name to every color. So there's green, yellow, orange, red, and gray. So green is prevent, and that's like the lowest level. Yellow is protect. Orange is restrict. Red is control, and then gray is lockdown. So right now, the health unit that I live under, I guess you could say, is in the orange zone, and we are getting really close to the threshold to be moved into the red zone. And I've had a lot of people asking, like, what does this mean? What's going on? And I think this is an interesting thing for everyone. Usually I wouldn't talk about something this specific to people who live in Ontario, but I think this is interesting even for those who don't, because there are so many different ways that different areas are dealing with the coronavirus, and it's interesting to hear and learn about how different places are doing it. So here we have very specific thresholds of the number of the percentage of positive tests and the percentage of active cases. So the percentage of positive tests is the number one thing that leads you to move into a new zone. So all this means is if they do 1,000 tests and 100 of them test positive, that's a 10% positive test rate, I should say, right? So if you have 10% of cases testing positive, that's a huge number, you would certainly be moved into the lockdown. Right now, where I'm living, the last number I saw was close to like 2.5% to 3%. It varies day by day of the percentage of positive tests. And I think as you approach 3%, that's where we get into control, and ultimately higher than 3% is when they'll actually lock you down. So what do all of these different things mean? To be perfectly honest with you, I've read through this before, but I don't really think anyone knows. Which is a really, really unfortunate side effect, I guess you could say, of the coronavirus response, because we have 5 different levels, right? Obviously, gray lockdown is like quite literally right now, there are only 2 areas that are locked down, Toronto and Peel, and these are the most densely populated parts of the province. Like, it's quite obvious why these would be the areas of most impacted. Peel is basically a lot of your essential workers that work in the Toronto area or Toronto region, and then Toronto itself is very dense population. So it's understandable why those 2 areas are in lockdown, and I think everyone kind of understands what lockdown is. So for us here, Lockdown means that businesses cannot have indoor dining. It's takeout, or outdoor rather. It is takeout dining only. There's Adam's Barbecue. Shout out to that guy, because he's fucking weird and going to prison, hopefully. There are a bunch of places that are fighting against this because they don't want to be locked down, and they say that it's taking away from individual freedoms. I'm not going to have that conversation right now. But under lockdown, businesses and restaurants can only do like curbside pickup, basically. So you can place an order at a restaurant or at a store and have it picked up. You can have food or product delivered, obviously, to your house, no problem. But you're not going in through stores. The only stores that are open are what have been deemed essential. So they provide essential products like health-related products and whatnot. Now, in Ontario, there's a lot of controversy because some big box stores have been allowed, like Canadian Tire, have been allowed to remain open because they sell, like Canadian Tire specifically sells car parts. But Canadian Tire also sells, fishing rods, hunting rifles, snowboards, bikes. So it's a big box store that happens to have an automotive department. Walmart is a big box store that happens to have a pharmacy. So these large businesses have been allowed to remain open. And a lot of people aren't happy about that. But I think everyone understands what the lockdown restrictions are. There are some questionable areas, like so businesses are allowed to remain open if you are a licensed medical practitioner, which includes like optometrists and podiatrists, pediatricians, I don't know, other weird types of medicine that I probably have never heard of. They can all remain open. However, there was a lot of question around like chiropractors. Can a chiropractor remain open? What about a massage therapist who is licensed and they also offer different therapies that are essential for people, recovering from injuries and stuff like that. So there are some questions around what is included in the lockdown, but for the most part, the average person understands what the word lockdown means. The question comes between green, yellow, orange, and red. So right now, I live in the restrict zone. I don't honestly know the difference between restrict, which is orange, and control, which is red. The orange and red, I'm not even going to use the words because no one does. I don't know the difference between orange and red, or orange and yellow, or yellow and green, or yellow and red, for that matter. There are 3 different legislations that have been written. One covers green, yellow, and orange, and then the other 2, one covers red, and one covers the gray lockdown. But even reading through these legislations and whatnot, lockdown is the only one that to me has like clearly defined differences. So right now I live in orange, and I'm just going to go through and say like these are some things about orange. So it limits functions, parties, dinners, gatherings, barbecues, and weddings to 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors. Now, the red zone limits all organized public events and social gatherings, which it seems like orange covered, to 5 indoors and 25 outdoors. So 5 fewer people can be inside in the red zone than in the orange zone. But if we go to the yellow zone, it's 10 people indoors, 25 outdoors. Literally the same as the orange zone. So you start scrolling through this long list of things, and I mean very, very extensive list. Like they tried to cover everything from their sports and recreation has its own section, restaurants, public gatherings, meeting spaces, retail, personal care, casinos, cinemas, performing arts facilities. It is a long list of restrictions. And it seems like there are very small changes between everything up until you get to lockdown. So the discussion right now is that the region that I live in, as well as some others, Ottawa being the one that's also currently in orange, being discussed as moving into red. I don't understand like what the difference would be. Like if I get moved into the red zone, I don't know what the difference is, other than right now my workplace is in a red zone, and I live in an orange zone. And my workplace is actually right on the border of a gray zone. We're like actually 1, 2, 3 blocks north of a gray zone from in work, like where my workplace is. So like I don't right now they're recommending that you don't go from an orange zone to a red zone or a red zone to a gray zone. Like they recommend that you don't go to work, and so I'm not going to work. But then if I get moved into a red zone and work is in a red zone, does that mean that suddenly it's cool? Like, well, you're now staying in red zones so you can travel within the red zone. To me, this makes like very, very little sense. There's not much that's clear to me about not only what the difference is between all these different colored zones, but in how I'm supposed to react to it, right? Like, obviously, it means things are not getting, which they're not. They're not getting better right now. That's why we're talking about moving you to a worse color, right? You're going from orange to red. That's a bad thing. I get that. What I don't get is what I'm supposed to do about it as an individual. And I know that I'm not the only one that feels this way. I know there are people watching the news being like, oh, they're talking about moving you into a red zone and you into an orange zone now, and this place is getting better. They're going to move from orange to yellow. Okay, right? That doesn't mean that any of us get to stop wearing masks, because province-wide, we all have to be masked up. Doesn't matter where you live in the province. Province-wide, we're limited with how many people can be indoors, even in a green zone. We're limited with how many people can be together outdoors, even in the green zone. To me, what this looks like is we probably could have got away with a 2-level system, maybe a 3-level system, like green, orange, and red, or green, yellow, and red, or something like that, where it's like the green zones, you're talking about Northern Ontario, far Eastern Ontario, far Western Ontario, like Northwestern Ontario, Northeastern. For those of you who don't know, maybe you don't understand the geography of Ontario. Ontario is literally larger than Texas. It is like a massive, massive place. I drove last year. If you're listening to the podcast, I took a vacation way up north to a place called Moosonee and Moose Factory Island. They're up on the Hudson Bay. Incredible trip. I absolutely loved it, and it is about a 6 to 8 hour drive north, and then a 4-hour train ride. And of course, a train is doing probably 130, 140 kilometers an hour. So it is very, 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 very far north. Okay, Ontario is huge. It is absolutely huge. These zones out in the most remote areas of the province definitely don't need to have as strict measures because there's literally no one there. Okay, you're talking about a population in a city of like 10,000, right? As opposed to like around here where the average small community will be 80 to 100,000 people. And that's like, a normal size community. So I think what they should have done is made it very clear. You have 3 different levels, not 5. You have green, yellow, and red, or whatever. The top one should be locked down. There should be 2 places right now that are locked down. There should probably be a few more than that, to be honest with you. York Region should be included. I'm just going to say that out loud. But there should be 3 levels to this. One is things are not good, but normal, and that's green. Coronavirus is here. We all have to be careful. We have to know about it, and we're going to limit how many people can be in different places and whatnot. But, go about your business kind of thing. Then we need a yellow, which covers probably most of central and southern Ontario, and that would be exactly what it seems like the orange and red zones are right now, where it's much more limited. You can still eat inside, but you have to be all spaced out, and there's very few people actually allowed inside, and there's different screening measures in different places. You have to, if you go into a restaurant, they have to take your name down, because if you're in a restaurant, when someone tests positive, you get notified that you were in this restaurant at the same time as this person who ended up having coronavirus, right? That all needs to be in play, and then the red is lockdown. So that's how they should be doing it. Instead, there are 5 levels, and no one in the hell, like, there's no way anyone understands the difference between these 5 levels. So ultimately, what I said at the beginning was, should I break out my apocalypse kit? I'm going with probably not. Moving from yellow to red, I don't know what it means. I think there's going to be fewer people, at least, let into grocery stores at the same time. Fewer people let into restaurants, but, like, I'm not going into restaurants. I'm doing curbside pickup for my grocery orders and stuff like that. I went into a store for the first time since August or September. I went in to buy tiles for the house this past week. So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really understand how this is going to impact my life or most people's lives, because I think most people are kind of living life like I am right now, where it's just like you only go out if you have to, and you just kind of waiting for this all to end. So ultimately, I don't understand why the province has made this so complicated. I know there are other places that are far less complicated but not working at all. So, like, they're basically locked down or completely open. We're seeing that in a lot of places across the U.S. I don't know, man. Like, there has to be a happy medium. It can't be this complicated where, okay, your numbers, your ratios of positive tests have crossed a certain threshold, so now you're in the red zone, but everyone who lives there is, like, literally doesn't notice a difference. That means we're probably looking at this a little too narrow. We need to broaden the perspective a little bit and just do a better job of communicating exactly what the heck all of these differences are. Over the past few weeks, it has also come out that both the United States and Canada are hiring across the countries. They're hiring different former heads of military and in the U.S., some active military personnel in substantial positions to assist in the distribution of vaccines. In the U.S., they're talking about later this month, and in Canada at the beginning of next year. And one question that has been posed to me by someone I thought was really worth discussing here, because it's a fascinating perspective, is should the military be involved in this? Are we giving military powers that maybe they shouldn't have? Will it impact, this is one thing that I thought was really interesting, was I was asked, will it impact people's willingness to take it? When, like in Ontario, the individual who's taking over, I'm going to get his name in a second, I'm just looking it up, but he's former head of the Canadian military, and he's going to be taking over the COVID vaccine distribution. And people were like, well, does that not mean that people are going to think the government is giving this out? So it's General Rick Hillier is his name. And it's really interesting because, yes, he is a former military general with the Canadian military, the Canadian Armed Forces. And perhaps people in Ontario will see that a former general is the one responsible for distributing this vaccine, and that means that it's coming from the government, and it's all a plot for the government and the military to gain more power and stuff. It's really fascinating because at the same time, this or people like this, I should say, like retired General Hillier, as well as those we're seeing in across the United States. Many different states are doing this as well. At the federal level, there are current active military. I don't want to use the word executives. I don't actually know the term for high-ranking, but it's just a high-ranking military official, I guess, is the correct term, who are helping and organizing this distribution, because other than a company like Amazon, do you know who's literally the only people better than Amazon at moving people and products around their countries? The military, really, right? Like, think about it. Our militaries, both Canada and the U.S., are by far the largest entities in each of those countries. Maybe not financially, but by personnel and assets, They certainly are, right? When you're talking about like a plane, a single plane that's worth like $1 billion, you know what I mean? Several $100 million, and we place orders of like 7 or 8 at a time. These are by far the most valuable items, the most valuable entity in the country. And that entity happens to be owned by the government. And those who run it and formerly ran those entities are probably the top people at distributing government assets, which is exactly what's happening with these vaccines. Even though it's private companies producing them and aiding in the distribution, these are becoming viewed as government assets by those in charge, because we can't leave this up to business to sort out. I am a 100% capitalist. I think I've made that very clear over time on this show. But there are certain times where the profit, the for-profit agenda simply does not work. And this is one of them, right? So do you want someone, when it comes to these vaccines, to be someone like me, an accountant, a management accountant specifically? This is something that I would do, to run a calculation to determine the most cost-effective form of packaging to ship these products? Or do you want someone to, more like someone scientific, to run experiments and figure out the most effective form of packaging to get the most vaccines undamaged to their end locations? Because those are two different things. It costs a lot more money to make sure that no vials are breaking than it does to say, well, we can afford to break 6%, 5% of vials in process, and still make a lot of money. Because that's what I do at work, right? So that's something that a lot of people don't realize actually happens. Like, every single business out there does that. It's part of the reason why accountants are in demand, because to a business, and I'm going to use, I'm just going to make up an example of cell phones, because I'm looking at my phone right now. So any company like Samsung making cell phones will say, okay, we're making screens today. I don't think Samsung makes their screens, actually, but anyways, we're producing screens, and they're coming off the line. They have to go into a box to be shipped to the plant where they actually put the screen on the cell phone. How many screens can break where we'll still make our profit margin of $75 a phone? That's an easy calculation. How many are we shipping? What does it cost to make them? Great. What's the replacement value? Fantastic. I can tell you exactly how many screens can break in transit, so that, when they open a box, if there's a box with 100 screens in it, 6 or 7 broken in the box, doesn't matter. We still make our profit margin. That calculation happens every single day. Someone like retired General Hillier will not accept that, right? Because cost savings is a very important thing in the military. It absolutely is. I'm not overshadowing that. However, the goal of military personnel and military jobs is objective-based. It's completing an objective. And that's something that they are very good at. And personally, I think that they are probably best to organize and fulfill this objective of distributing vaccines to everyone in their particular province, state, country, whatever level they're working at. And honestly, I think this is a fantastic decision. I think this is probably the best group of people to involve to move these sorts of assets as effectively as possible. Because at this point in time, I'm just going to be real with you. Both countries, the US and Canada, have spent far too much money on the coronavirus, right? We could have done a way better job at the beginning of minimizing the spread, which we didn't do. and we had to, here in Canada, we gave out money every month. In the U.S., you got the stimulus checks. Businesses closing and not being, and who knows how many people are not going to be able to pay their federal taxes at the end of next year. Or at the end of this year, but in, April, May, whenever taxes are due in your area of next year, it's going to be I don't know what's going to happen because there's going to be a lot of people who owe a lot of money that are like, I can't pay that. I have no money. I haven't worked since November. How am I supposed to pay my taxes? I had to use that money, right? It's going to be fascinating how this is all dealt with. And at this point, I don't think anyone is worried about what it's going to cost to get rid of this. Seriously. Because it kind of doesn't matter at this point. If they're like, it's going to be $2 trillion to get everyone vaccinated, I think the U.S., whoever's president, any person signs that right away and doesn't even get questioned about it except by Ron Paul or Rand Paul. You know what I mean? There's going to be one person who's like, oh, we shouldn't be spending that money. And the rest of the people will be like, I don't give a fuck. Just sign it quick, get the money distributed, and we will pay for this later. And that's how this is. It has to be looked at this point because this has to come to an end. We have to get these vaccines out. They have to work. And, and then we have to go from there. And lastly, a fun little story that I wanted to bring up because I laughed so hard this week. Donald Trump, many people may have seen, he got into a heated discussion with another journalist or reporter in the White House asking him questions about losing the election and whatnot. And he's like, you will respect me. I'm the president. Whatever. But in a follow-up question, a female reporter jumped in and said, Mr. President, I just want to clarify, if you lose the election, will you leave this office or will we still be talking to you from this building? And Trump said, will I leave if I lose? Of course I will. Come on. Of course I will. So that is by far the closest Donald Trump has ever come to remotely saying that he has any intention of ever leaving the White House, which is one of the most fascinating things that came out of this week, and no one's talking about it, and I have no idea why. Because up until this point, if he's been asked anything, he's been like, I won. There's no sense in having that discussion. I won. But now he said, if I lose, of course I will. Of course I will leave. Now, there's no question that Donald Trump lost the election. Okay, there's no debate to be had. Trust me, I've seen what's going on now in Detroit with the courts, or not Detroit specifically, but Michigan. And there's literally no question that after Arizona just certified their vote, and it's too late. Donald Trump cannot reverse enough votes to be president. I've been saying that to you guys for 2 or 3 weeks now. But Donald Trump still seems to think that there's a chance. And I almost did a whole This Week in Stupid on Donald Trump insisting he's still the winner. But I'm holding off on that because I'm certain that there is going to be a point in the future where I can make a fantastic montage clip of Donald Trump freaking out about how he won the election and Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump's personal lawyer, going on TV. Guys, Rudy Giuliani tried to book a Four Seasons hotel to give a press conference about how they actually won the election in Pennsylvania. Instead, he booked, or his staffer booked, the Four Seasons lawn maintenance company. So they showed up, and all these reporters showed up thinking they were going to a Four Seasons hotel. They were at the Four Seasons lawn care. Okay? That's how ridiculous this is. It's how asinine a position this president and his administration is taking. It's laughable, and I can't wait to do this sort of moratorium, this Donald Trump in review in the coming weeks. Because I'm not only excited to go over how much he collapsed, but I think that I can actually prove to you and have people who hate Donald Trump come out of that conversation, of that podcast, thinking Donald Trump actually wasn't as bad a president as you may think he is right now. Because looking at what he did, like, I literally thought Donald Trump was going to win. I think Donald Trump probably should have won. But Donald Trump trumped himself. Okay? Literally. Like, getting trumped should no longer mean you did better than someone. It should literally mean you screwed yourself over. Because that's what he did. And it's just so mind-blowing. Donald Trump, through most of his time as president, did fantastic things for conservatives, for people who see the world the way he does. It's just that he talked like a crazy person. Like, everything wrong with Donald Trump is in how he presents himself. And what he's done is proven that, and I talked about this last week, that you need to be a politician to work in politics. Because he just didn't get it. He still doesn't get it. And honestly, if he just had some sort of decorum, he would have easily won. His record, what he, like, when people say that, like, Donald Trump loves Russia, literally Donald Trump was so hard on Russia, it's not even funny. When they say Donald Trump loves China, let's not forget that there's currently a woman under arrest in British Columbia, in Canada, right now, being held for the U.S. government, who is the daughter of a Chinese billionaire, because Trudeau and Donald Trump had a phone call, and they decided we're going to arrest her because China is fucking with global markets. And she directly was aiding in that. And she is still under arrest in Vancouver. At any point in time, Trump can release her. And I have a feeling Joe Biden's going to say we're not going to take her, and then Trudeau will have no choice but to release her. Because we're holding her for the U.S. Like, Canada doesn't have charges against her. The United States does. So we're kind of holding her as a proxy. And it's the sort of thing that's like, politically, Trump hates China. Like, he does not get along with them politically. He does not get along with Russia politically. But personally, he's like, hey, we're friends. We do this, that, and the other. And, oh, he's a good guy. Oh, President Xi, he's a cool dude. But it's like, if only his words spoke louder than his actions. Because, if his actions spoke louder than his words. Because Donald Trump's words are echoed and echoed and echoed and replayed and replayed and replayed. And when he actually did something, no one talked about it. And rightly so, because he was an asshole. And he did these dumb things. He spoke like a business person trying to, save for a future deal. When in reality, that's not how politics works. And that's why he lost. So I can't wait for the day to go through and talk about Trump. But he did say he'd leave the White House. So now we'll be able to call him a liar if he chooses not to. Though I would... Oh my God. If Donald Trump gets physically tossed out of the White House and that's on camera, I would love that. I will make a video of myself watching it, just laughing at it. And I think no one will watch that video, but I will, because that is literally the epitome of where things seem like they are going. But I just wanted to touch on that because Donald Trump did say he will leave the White House. He has a few small things in court, but the vote has to be certified by December 4th, this coming Friday, or maybe Saturday the 5th. Either way, this week it has to be certified, and we will know for sure who the next president is going to be. The Electoral College votes on it this week. So that's all going to be finished. It's all going to be done for, and we know Biden's going to be the next president, but this coming week, there may be a little bit more to discuss, so keep your eyes peeled, because if you're interested in learning about politics and stuff, this is going to be an interesting week to watch what's happening with Donald Trump and to watch some news programs Friday and especially on Saturday. So, yeah, that would be your homework for the week if you're into that sort of thing. Thank you all so much for listening to the podcast this week and each and every week. Thank you for coming back if you returned. Thank you for checking it out if it's your first time. Don't forget to share the podcast wherever you happen to be on social media. You can reach out to me anytime using the contact page. You can find my merch at www.laughtolearnpodcast.com/store. Thank you guys so much as we come into the holiday season. If you live in an area with snow, drive safe. Be safe outside. If you're snowboarding or skiing, do some crazy shit for me, but don't break your neck. I can't wait to get on my snowboard, if you can't tell. No matter where you are, make sure you're wearing your masks, you're social distancing, you're washing your hands, you're being safe. Your families, I hope everyone is safe and well. Until next time, friends, I will see you next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Keep on laughing and keep on learning.